of Denver does not want headlines that it's laying off employees in order to pay for the migrant crisis. But the city is telling hourly employees that they may have their hours reduced to zero. Just don't call them layoffs. Here's Mark Salinger.
When we got a tip that employees at this rec center were being told they no longer had jobs, we asked the city if there were new layoffs that hadn't been announced yet. Can you confirm if this is accurate? I asked the mayor's office and Parks and Rec department. Their answer was meant to assure us that we were wrong. No layoffs, they said. However, some employees may have their hours reduced to the point where they may not receive any hours. They're not calling it layoffs, but it definitely sounds like some people may not have jobs anymore.
These direct impacts today on DMV do not involve layoffs, nor do Parks and Rec involve layoffs of our current employees. We will have folks that are hourly workers that will have fewer hours.
When Mayor Mike Johnston announced earlier this month that the city would cut budgets, he warned hourly employees would lose some work. Now we know they could lose all their work.
I don't want to hide the fact that this matters a lot to those people that are on the front lines.
The Parks and Rec department tells us everyone from front desk workers to coaches to lifeguards are considered on-call employees that could be impacted by these cuts. The department has been told to cut $4.3 million to help the city pay for the migrant crisis. Johnston said today it hasn't been decided which jobs will have their hours cut and by how much.
We have not made any final decisions yet on cuts other ones to be announced already. And so all of our departments, all our agencies, we're going to have to find a way to prioritize.
Employees who have had their hours reduced to the point where they aren't earning enough money to still work are allowed to apply for unemployment benefits in the same way as if they were laid off. Information posted on the state's website indicates they would be eligible to receive unemployment benefits from the state. The mayor also hinted today that the city will be reducing the services offered to newly arriving migrants. Kyle, although he didn't offer any specifics, he said that that would be coming sometime in the next couple of days.
I understand why it's not technically a layoff, but it is essentially a layoff. If you're working 35 hours a week, you get taken to 0 hours a week and you can apply for unemployment. This honestly reminds me of under the Hancock administration when they would do homeless sweeps and they would tell journalists in town, don't call them sweeps, we like different words.
Sure, if you don't have a job, I mean, when you boil it down, if you say, hey, I'm earning enough money for 35, 40 hours a week and now you're earning 0, it feels like you lost your job. And today, the Johnson administration, we've talked a lot about House 1000, the mayor's efforts to bring people inside, solve homelessness. They are now rebranding that. It is no longer House 1000. I have to learn what it is. It's called All In Mile High now.
All In Mile High.
We're told it's the same priorities, same way how it operates. It's just now not House 1000. It's All In Mile High.
It's tough to keep up with the words that they want us to use on the news. It's a good thing we don't actually do that. All right.
Here's up, guys. John here. A migrant family of 4 in New York City will now receive $20,000 every single month. And what's happening there is spreading all throughout the country.
A migrant family of 4 in New York could get over 20 grand a month in freebies.
20 grand a month. A few years ago, that was a doctor's salary, a lawyer's salary. Now all you have to do is come into the country. $20,000 every single month. And inside of these cities, these are the sanctuary cities where there's hundreds of locations, hundreds of cities all throughout the country offering very, very similar benefits.
A new pilot program that'll give migrant families a reloadable prepaid credit card to buy food and baby supplies.
To newcomers. That's according to Newsweek. This is what they're now called. Migrants are now considered newcomers. Now, when you look at what's happening here, for example, in New York City, they're offering top-tier government jobs to migrants. Top-tier government jobs. This isn't my opinion. She says it.
Just in every corner of the state. Governor Kathy Hochul's administration recently agreed to a proposal that could make it easier for migrants to get temporary jobs in state government.
Now, when you look at what's really going on here, you have to ask yourself this big question. As food costs are through the roof, the cost of living is through the roof.
The amount being spent on eating has hit a 30-year high.
Data shows more Americans are taking on debt and relying on credit cards to make ends meet.
When you start to give out so much money to so many people chasing a finite amount of goods and services, what will likely happen? Prices will continue to go up, putting more stress and strain on the pockets of hundreds of millions of Americans. And in this video, I'm going to break it down and show you exactly.
I'll make a fist and squeeze the tag to the top of my skin. When I approach the device, it opens the Facebook page I set it to.
Colin Provino has a microchip implanted in both of his hands.
Some people just look really grossed out. I put my hand up and I let them poke at it, they freak out.
Developed in the 1950s and 60s, RFID chips, short for radio frequency identification, have been used by retailers to track packages and prevent theft. Farmers use the chips to keep tabs on their livestock. Pet owners use them to identify their cats and dogs. And lately, members of the so-called body hacker movement have been implanting RFID chips under their skin, programming them to perform various tasks. Colin Provino, a smartphone repairman in Brooklyn, New York, uses his chips to open his front door. He found them on a website called Dangerous Things that sells implant kits and offers user tips.
Well, I came across it when I was doing research on the Samsung deadbolt that I bought. And then the first thing that I noticed was that I could get an RFID tag that would work with the deadbolt.
Provino plans to modify one of his motorcycles next.
And I haven't decided on where I want to put the authenticator, the antenna, thinking probably down by the seat somewhere if this comes off, so I would just tap my hand on it, then the light would come on as if I put the key in, and then I would just hit the ignition and start the vehicle.
RFID retailers estimate that between 30 and 50,000 people worldwide have chip implants in their bodies. German tech consultant Andreas Sjöström used his chip as a boarding pass on a recent flight from Stockholm to Paris, and to get into an airport VIP lounge. Skeptics say the implants raise privacy issues and worry that strangers could tap into the information on a chip without the owner's knowledge. Others say potential uses for the technology, such as keeping track of a patient with dementia, could pose ethical concerns. But Provino and others see a future where technology and the human form will merge.
I think when it becomes more prevalent and there's a lot more things and options that you can do with this, that people will, opt in for that kind of augmented human sort of attitude. That's why I have an Android device and not an iPhone, is because I want to be able to customize everything I have, so why should I not be able to customize myself?
Soon you will be able to pay for groceries at every Whole Foods in the U.S. with just a swipe of your hand. Amazon says that the phone technology will be at all of those stores nationwide by the end of the year. Customers just have to hover their hand over the device to pay. This method is already being used at 200 Whole Foods locations across 20 states, and you can also find it in other places, stores like Panera Bread. Hardware editor at TechCrunch, Brian Heater, joins us now. Brian, let's just start off. Tell us how this technology works.
Sure. So in terms of the actual enrollment process, the first time you go to one of these Amazon One locations, you wave your hand over it. That will enroll you in the program, and then you associate that with a credit card that you have on file. In terms of the actual underlying technology behind it, it's not actually getting a read of the palm itself, which I think is what most people expect. It's actually taking a look at the vein patterns underneath your hands, which Amazon is effectively saying is a way to do this kind of biometric identification without actually giving any identifying information away.
That's fascinating. I mean, I think anybody who hears this story immediately goes to questions about safety, privacy, the data that's being collected. Amazon has been criticized in the past for some of the data that they collect, and whether they have properly notified consumers about that. What safeguards is Amazon taking?
Sure. Well, the primary one is all of this is going through Amazon's cloud servers. So this is encrypted information. Amazon has generally done a good job of protecting privacy through the cloud itself. I think one of the sort of bigger concerns around this specifically is that unlike the biometric data that you're giving on your phone, for example, that's stored locally on the device itself, but this is going up into the cloud. So theoretically, somebody could potentially grab that data, but it's intensely difficult.